Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so good morning to one and all. So we are now at the end of this chapter. We have just one program remaining. Okay. So we'll just complete this program first and then we are going to have a quiz for this chapter. And I have almost revised it once again in the last lecture what we have done it. And I'm not going to do it again because we have already studied 2 times this chapter. Okay. So I'll just go with this example first and then we'll have a quiz. So what you can see over here is, so if you don't know which chapter we are learning, first of all I'll let you know that we are learning the cookies chapter. Okay, and we have already seen one program for that cookies. Okay, now this is a second program which I am going to show you and then we'll learn how it is going to work. Okay, so this is your HTML page, this is your the client end page which is going to be seen to your client, where we are expecting the two inputs from the client, that is one is username and one is password. Okay, and what is my expectation is when I'm going to click onto the submit button, it should let me redirect or remap to the servlet file, which is a server side file which I have created, which is responsible to accept the input from the client and should process that request. Okay, and it should forward it to the some other page along with the cookies. Okay, so that is a basic structure what we have done it in the last example also. So now here what is going to happen, this servlet file is going to create a cookie and it is going to send that response whichever is been generated with the help of the request which has came. Along with that response, the servlet file is going to have a cookie along with the response which is going to be sent to your next file. Now this file can be your servlet file as well as your HTML file. It completely depends on you. Okay, so which type of file you want to create it over here, either it is HTML, JSP or a servlet, it is completely a developer's choice. Currently we are just considering that we are going to send our response along with the cookies to our servlet file, and that servlet file is going to show the response to the user, whichever response is going to be generated from your servlet, this file for servlet file. Okay, now we'll just go with the example programs. We'll see the very first thing what we are going to do, we are going to design a page. Okay, so now here I'm not writing all those HTML tag, body tag, you just have to understand here inside the body tag this form tags are going to be written. Okay, so this I'm just writing the logic, main logic of the designing. Fine. So now which all things were required in your front end, that is in your UI for the client, you need a label called name, you need a label called password which is going to accept two inputs in the form of string values. So for that need I have to create a text fields. Okay, then I'm going to have one button which is going to be clicked, and once it is been clicked it should be redirected to something which I am going to mention it inside my form tag, that what action needs to be performed while having the button click. Okay, so now what I am saying here, I am having two labels, name and password, which I am making text fields for those two labels to accept the inputs. Okay, it is going to accept the input in the form of text, and I have given the name for the text field. The first text field name is going to be what, user. The second text field name is going to be what, pass. Okay, and then I have created one button over here on which the client is going to submit the inputs whichever it is going to be passed, and once it has been clicked it is going to get redirect, which I'm mentioning inside the form tag with action attribute, which is equals to where it has to get redirect my servlet file, that is your first servlet file, first Java file, where I'm going to have some code to accept this input. Okay, so like this is very basic thing. Now you have to understand number of examples we have done it already. So how the form tag is being used, how the action attribute is going to be used. Okay, why we are using the method is equals to post, this number of times we have studied now. Okay, oh fine, now we are in this second file, that is your first Java file. First was your HTML file, this is your second file, that is a Java file whose name is my servlet. Okay, now every time whenever I'm going to start with my servlet file, so I have told you that these three import statements are mandatory, they have to be written. Okay, like first is your servlet dot star, next is your servlet dot http dot star. This is the two defined packages available inside your servlet. Okay, for the servlet basically inside your Java. Okay, so you can call these two packages in your program and this is a third file, third import statement, that is what your io dot star, that is your input output stream file. Okay, so these three import statements you have to write, and then after that you can create your own class, user defined class, whose name is what, my servlet. Okay, always remember when I talk about the NetBeans IDE, so it demands to have the class name and the file name should be same. But when I deal with the console and when I deal with the notepad file, the normal environment where I'm doing my basic programs, okay, with the help of notepads, there I've I informed you during your SY that it is not mandatory. We can easily work with the different names of your class and the file. Okay, so but here, considering that we are working with a NetBeans IDE where I'm going to write this whole code, so just have to have these two names same, that is one is your file name, one is your class name. Okay, and I told you that we are going to have one specific interface, either a class, which is going to help me to make my program understand that I want to implement a servlet in my code, okay, in my Java code. So now what is the option available for me to do that, to hint the program that I am going to work with the servlets? I have two options. Either I can go with the first package, which is going to give me one specific interface to create the servlets in my program, that is your servlet interface. The name is itself what, servlet. That is one interface available inside your first package. Now when I talk about the second option which is available with me to create a servlets or to make the program understand that I am going to implement the servlets in my program, so from second package you have a class, that is something we known as what, HTTP servlet class. So from first package you get an interface called servlet interface. From second package you get a class, that is something we call it as HTTP servlet class. Okay, now it depends on what you are using. The things are going to change in your program. Even the keywords are going to change over here, where you are going to inherit that class and then interface. Okay, so if I'm using the first package, deciding that I'm just going to do the servlet programming using the first package option, what I can do is I can write the keyword called implements, because I'm getting servlet interface from there. So I'll write public class my servlet implements servlet, that is your interface name, which is a defined interface name, so implements servlet. And that is in the case when I'm going to use a first package. Okay, and now after that, if you want to make a use of the methods of that particular interface, where you are going to have the request and response task in your program, so you have to mention the service method instead of do post method. Okay, so when I talk about the first package, you are going to have implements servlet interface, only servlet you have to write. Then after that, if you're implementing this servlet interface over here, then you have to use service method for that. Okay, now here what I am doing it over here, this is like something, the second package I am going to use it, which is an HTTP specific package. Okay, the classes and interfaces which are available inside this is transparently supporting the HTTP protocol. Okay, now here I am using the specific class available inside this package, that is what, your HTTP servlet class. And it is a class, that's why I'm using which keyword, extends keyword. Okay, and here again I'm not using the service method, which is just meant for your first package. I'm using which method, that is your do post and do get method. You have two options. Okay, so I'm going to use which one, do post method. I told you why we are sticking with the do post method, because it is something allowing me to have the n number of data to be sent forward to the another pages, or unlimited length of data I can request and response with the help of do post method. Okay, now inside this method, either do post method or you can talk about the service method, I have two things which has been created inside as a parameter of that method. Okay, it is going to be the two object for having the request and response. Now when I talk about the first package, which interface we have taken to create the servlet, servlet interface, correct? And then I have used the keyword called implements. And as per that, I'm going to change this method also. That is going to be what, service method. Now here also there is going to be change inside this service method. I am not going to write HTTP servlet request. What I am going to write, only the HTTP. I'm going to write only the servlet request. I'll remove HTTP from here, because your second package is not supporting the HTTP. Okay, so what is going to be the now statement we are going to write here? If I'm sticking with the first package, that it is going to be service void service servlet request servlet response. This object names you can change if you are getting confused. Okay, now we are dealing with the second package in this program, so that's why we have extended or inherited, that is your class available, that is your http servlet. And as per that, I'm changing the method name also, that is what your do post method. Okay, and inside the method again, I'm going to have a request response object, but here instead of that servlet request and servlet response interface, I'm just going to have what http servlet request and http servlet response. Okay, so these two interfaces are meant for request to response in your second package. Fine, and you are going to throw the exceptions regarding related to your servlet and the IO exceptions. Fine, I hope this option, this statement, you remember why we are using it. So this is like setting the content type of the response. Okay, and it is going to be in the text format, and it is going to be shown to in the HTML page. Okay, and which encoding type I am using it, that is your UTF-8. Fine, it is optional, students, like the way we are doing it in the previous program. You can go with that only if you don't want to remember this, if you don't want to write this. Okay, it is completely your choice if you want to define the encoding type, and if not, then it is like it can be ignored. Now, which two parameters we are accepting from the client? We have a name and the password. Fine. So now, as per the basic structure, what we supposed to do in the servlet file, we have to code it in such a way that we are going to accept those two inputs and the two parameters from the client end. So client is giving the options, client is giving the inputs to the server. What server has to do, it has to write some code which meant for accepting that inputs from the client. So every time what we are doing, we are using a parameter get parameter method, which is whole and sole responsible to do this task. Okay, I told you when we have studied about this scanner class, we had a specific method to fetch the values from the client end and store it into one of the variable. It can be a next int method, it can be a next double method, it can be a next method for accepting the characters and string values. Now here we have what, we have a servlet. So if I want to accept the request from the client and get it stored into the variables which I am going to create in my Java file, so there I have a method called it as what, get parameter method. Okay, and I told you yesterday also, whenever I'm going to have a get method, I'm going to attach or I'm going to invoke that get method, any get method, with the help of the request object. Okay, and that request object is coming from the interface, that is your http servlet request interface, which I have created over here inside your do post method. Fine, so now what we are going to do over here, we are going to use a method name called as get parameter method, and I have given the text field names in the HTML file. That is, the first text field name is your user, second text field name is what, your pass. Okay, so from this particular text field I have to fetch the values with the help of the get parameter method, and whenever I am going to accept or fetch the value from the client, I have to use which object, request object. Once it is fetched, it has to get stored into the variable called as name. Similarly with the password. Okay, now I'm simply giving a condition. If I wanted to get redirect to the third file, or you can say the second Java file, okay, which I have created for this specific program, what I am doing right now. So what I am going to have a condition, if the pass, the variable which I am having for one value, that is the password which is coming from user end, if it is getting equals to 1 2 3 4, then only is your cookie are going to be created. Okay, if the password is not getting equals to the specific value, the cookie is not been created, it is not been added into the response, because the response is not going to be generated for your third file, and nothing has been shown to the client. Okay, so that means we have a error, or we have like invalid value from the user end. Fine, so now what we are saying, we are saying that if the password which is holding some value which user has passed, if it is equals to 1 2 3 4, then what should happen, the cookie should create. Now for creating cookie, we have already know you what, what is the syntax about, how to create the cookies. So what is going to happen over here, so I am having a cookie keyword or a class name, okay, which comes also along with your second package. Okay, Now in this specific program, if I wanted to make use of first package, which is not an HTTP specific one, and if I wanted to use a cookie, so then it is going to have a like two different things I'm trying to use into one single program. Okay, so that also you have to make understand and use it wisely whenever you're going to code something. Okay, so when I'm saying that the cookie is going to have a servlet, which is supporting the HTTP, so you have to go with the second package, which is going to have a servlet along with your HTTP. Fine. Now I have created a cookie class. I have already a cookie class from your second package. Okay, I have created an instance or an object is equals to, I have a new operator, and this is your constructor of the cookie class. Okay, now inside the constructors I have two parameters. We had two types of constructors, one was your default and one is your parameterized. Okay, so inside the parameterized constructor we had a two parameter, one is your name, one is your value. Okay, now what we are going to do inside your name, basically I told you that is going to work as like your variable name. Okay, which is going to hold some value, and that value can comes from anywhere throughout your program. Okay, now this name is nothing but the variable name which I have created over here. Okay, it is holding some value. Say for example, as a user I have given ABC as a name. Okay, and that user text field, the text field name user is having the value called as ABC, which is getting stored into your name variable. Okay, now what I'm going to do inside the cookies, where I'm having two parameters, so what I'm going to have, I am having a variable name called as username. Okay, that can be considered as a name of your cookie also, which is going to understand the cookie, which is going to identify the cookie with the name which I'm defining over here. Okay, and for this particular name I'm defining the value, and the value is going to come from where, the variable which is holding some value from the client end. Okay, so this name variable, say for example I'm having ABC, which is going to get stored into this particular variable, that is what your username. Fine. Now I have created a cookie over here. So what is the next task? So what is the expectation when I'm going to have a cookie? I wanted to send it back to my next page along with the responses which is going to be generated, which is going to be created. Okay, so it is going to happen only once when it is going to satisfy the condition what I have given over here. That is what your password should be equals to your 1234. Okay, so now what you're going to have, you're going to add the cookie which you have just now created along with your response. And for the response, we have a specific interface, call it as what? HTTP servlet response interface. Its object name is what? Response. Okay, you can change. I told you if you're getting confused with this, you can change the object name so that you can understand it better. Okay, so right now what is the object name we have, that is your response. I'm just going to add the cookie using the add cookie method. This is not user defined, this is your predefined method of your cookie class. So what I am going to do it, I'm just going to use a response object, and along with the response what I want to do it, I want to send the cookie. If I want to send a cookie, what method I am having? Add cookie method. I just want to call the object of the cookie class which I have created. That is what your CK. Okay. So once we have done this, we have now created a cookie. We have the condition also when the cookie has to be created, when the response is going to be generated, and how the response is going to add the cookie. This all things we have done it. Okay. Now what we are going to do the next, we are just going to have a method which is going to have the redirection from this servlet file to the another servlet file. Okay, how you're going to do that, you again you use to what, response object of your HTTP servlet response interface. Okay, you have to use a method called as what, send redirect method. Okay, which is going to help me to have that redirection and the remapping of your first servlet file to the next servlet file, and you just have to mention that file name over here. So considering that, the next file name what I have given is going to be your first. Okay, I told you number of times, students, you don't have to even mention the extensions of the file, because it is inside one project directory you have all those files. Okay, so you doesn't need to make the program understand whether it is an HTML file or a Java file. Okay, the program is going to understand it, find it automatically within the application, within the project what you are creating it. Okay, so here what I have done, I have just used the object called as response, and I am just going to use a method called as send redirect, and in that method I'm going to write the file name where the program has to get redirect to. So I've written what, first. Okay, now the last thing which I'm going to teach you, that is what, this file. So what we are doing, again we are writing that those three import statements over here. That is two import statements for your servlet and one is for your input output. Okay, so now here what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have a class that is what first, which I am expecting that the response is going to come to this page from your previous one. So that is a my servlet file, that is your first Java file, which is going to process your request. It will accept the request from the client, get it stored into the two variables. That variables is going to be processed, and once the condition is getting satisfied as per the requirement, it is going to have the creation of the cookies, and that cookies is going to be attached to your response, which needs to be sent to the next file. That file can be anything. It can be a Java file, it can be your HTML file, JSP file, whatever file you want to create it, you can create it. Completely on you in which form you want to show your response to your client. No matter that client is not going to have any type of issues in whichever form it is going to be shown to the client. Okay, so now here what I'm doing, I'm just going to have a class. I'm just going to extend again the same class that is responsible for having the servlet in the program, that is your HTTP servlet. Again, I'm going to have a method called as what? Now do get method. Why? So if I am having a do post method, it is meant for having the sending unlimited of data to the another files to which it is going to be redirect or a remap. Okay. Do get method is responsible for receiving the response, receiving the values from the previous page where it is going to have that redirection. Fine. So I have written do get method over here. What I am going to do it, I am again going to set the content type in which form my client is going to see the response. Okay, and to get that value into that particular web page, that is your HTML, we need to have a class, specific class, that is what your print writer. If you will not write a print writer class over there, you should have a question in the previous file. If I can show you over here, we have not written print writer because here we don't want to show anything to the client. It is just the processing happening in this Java file. Okay, nothing has been shown to the client. Okay, now here we have to show the response which has been generated. So that's why I have to make use of what? Print writer class. Now after that I am going to have something called it as like this, where I'm going to have a cookie. I'm going to create an array. Now you can have a question that why this bracket comes here after the class name. You can have both the options available. Either you can use it over here or you can use it along with the CKS. Okay, it's completely fine with both the options. Okay, now why we are doing this? Because I know that from the previous file I'm going to get some cookies, and I need to get that cookies to understand that what value that cookie is holding it. Fine. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create an array, and I'm again going to use a method called as get cookies method, which is going to help me to fetch those cookies which is coming from the first servlet file, first Java file, along with the response. Fine. Now if I'm using a get method, so again which object I'm going to use? Request object. Fine. And that cookies which are coming along with your response is going to get stored into your array. Fine. Now I know that in this specific program there is going to be only one cookie which is coming, because I can clearly see the program. If at all in the dynamic world, in if you can see, you have a bigger application, complex application, you don't know what is the length of the cookies are being generated by your servlet file. Simply what you can say, don't define the length. Okay, just define a variable for that index value. And if you remember that for loop which we have run, and we have run that for loop till the length of the cookie is going to be lesser than the length of the cookie. So that is how you're going to work. Fine. So here we know that there is only one cookie which is coming along with your response. So I'm just going to have what? A print statement where the response is going to be shown to the user, saying that welcome, that is like whatever you want to write it, you can write. Which value I just wanted to find? The value which has been associated to the 0th index place of your array. Okay, so that array name was your CKS, and then 0th place is holding only one cookie whose value I wanted to know. So from the first page the name came as what? ABC. We considered that ABC as the name which got stored into the name variable. We created a cookie, and inside that cookie we have just added a value called as ABC. That cookie has been generated. Now the response has been created, and along with the response I have sent the cookie, okay, to the next file. Here what I'm doing, I'm accepting that cookie which is holding a value called as ABC. The redirection happened only when the condition got satisfied, that is your password is equals to 1234. Okay, now once it is coming to this particular place, the value which is that cookie is holding, I just wanted to display that. Okay, so what you are going to get over here, welcome, and after this method, what you're going to get, the value, that is what ABC. So welcome ABC. Okay, so this is how your program, your cookies are going to get work for you. Fine, I hope you have understood this chapter. We are done with this chapter now. Okay, so I'll just stop sharing. If you have any doubts, students, we'll have 1 or 2 minutes to have your doubt solving, and then we can switch to the quiz. Fine, I hope that you have understood the program. See, I am sharing this PPT. You can also find that one notes what which I have given to you. Maybe some of the other programs are not there in that, or maybe there like 1 or 2 lesser programs we have in that notes. So you can just go with this PPT also. For the last slides you can go, because I am just adding the programs to make you understand. Okay, so that's the only extra thing. You just have to take it from the slides. Rest, otherwise everything is there in the notes. Fine, I have already given this chapter notes in the drive link which I have shared with you, and the lecture notes till date it is updated. Fine, so I'll just stop sharing this. Just let me know whether you have understood or not. If you have understood, then when we can directly go to the quiz which we have it now.